Hello, I've come to London today to meet Kim Joo-il. He used to serve in the North Korean army before he defected. Kim Joo-il was going to be the invited speaker at our annual conference, but unfortunately he wasn't able to get his travel documents to travel to Ireland. So I've come to London to talk to him.
Hello. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. Nice to meet you. Joo-il, can I begin by asking you, why did you decide to leave North Korea?
북한에 있을 때 외부 세계를
When I was in North Korea, I didn't know much about the outer world. Because in the North Korea, if you need to travel, then you need to get a travel document, even though you're visiting just neighbors. And in that system, I thought that North Korea living really well, and outer world is not. And when I went to the military, that I found out that the real situation of the world, which means the poor state of the North Korea, and I saw a lot of bad situation, and people are actually suffering and hurting, and I had a lot of doubts about North Korean system, and that's why I defected North Korea.
인민을 위한 사회가 맞는가라는 그런 걸 확인해 보고 싶은 어떤 동기가
I understand that you escaped from North Korea by swimming across the River Tumen at night. How did you escape being shot by border guards?
북한은 국경연서
As you know, that the North Korean border has a lot of layer of the security, like border security, and there's the normal people being caught, and there's another organizations to secure the border. And if we caught by police, then we need to answer them directly. And if they consider me as a escaper, then they can shoot me whenever they want. And because I was wearing the uniform for the army, and I was using that, and also because you cannot cross the river by when it's the bright night, which means like full moon or something. So I had to choose the cloudy, really dark night, and I went to cross the river. And because I trained to cross the river by just clothes, making tube, and that's how I crossed it. But the length of the river is about 40 or 50 meters, and it's at 1920 to 1930 the length of the river was really much more broader, but now it's a little bit narrowed down, and there's a lot of rocks, so that if you cross it without careful, then you can make some noise like a shackles. And because of that, I needed to be really quiet across the rock place and across the river and again the rock. It took me 4 hours, but it was so fortunate there was no guard, and I didn't caught any of them, so there was no gunshot or anything.
Joo-il, we've heard that you received help from Chinese Christians when you were a refugee, and it was that help that led to you becoming a Christian. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
북한을 탈출해 가지고 중국으로 온 다음에
when I escaped from the North Korea and went to the China, and as you know, all the defectors, they don't have any money, they don't have any passport, they don't have any visa, and with just bare hands, and we have to live in the street. Of course, it is really hard to get a job because we cannot say our nationality, and the people will not hire us, and we actually needed to beg to live in the street, and that's how all the North Korean escapers doing, and I am the one of them. And I heard that if you go to the church, then you can get an help. But when I was in North Korea, there was a lot of education and brainwash that says the church is actually stealing and scamming people, and if we go there to church, then we actually can die because the church can actually kill you. And I traveled without any Christian help from Guilin and Chongjin to Beijing. And when I went to the Beijing, actually there wasn't that much Chinese Korean there, so I couldn't really get much help. And there was this person who said, let's go to the church, maybe they can help us. So we went just for the beg for a meal, and we went to the church, and that's how we end up get a help with church.
In the latest issue of Church in Chains magazine, we found out that your favourite Bible verse was Matthew 11, verse 28, which is, "Come unto me, all ye who are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." Can you tell us why that is your favourite verse?
When I was in Beijing, the first church, actually I was really tiring. I mean, before I went to the church, I was really tired, physically and healthily as well. And when I went to that first church, it was not the big church, it was just home church, little church. And when I went in, there was this Bible lines on the walls, and there was this line came up. The line of heavy laden from that line was actually, it matches my situation, and that's how I felt that this is my place to rest, and this is feel much more relieved. And as I was working, the line that I learned at the first time, that line, it was actually gives me the energy for the whole time. And I think because the North Korean, they don't know about the religion, anything, so I think it can be also means to them as well.
What is the purpose of your work these days, Joo-il?
There's a lot of NGOs in international and also international society, and also like Western people. They want to change the North Korea by technical, strategy or something else. And nowadays they are concentrating on the media strategy, actually. And when I was in the North Korea, I was in the Chawon, which means the border between the North Korea and the South Korea. And there was a lot of Korean broadcasting. And when I was in North Korea, I thought that was whole lie, because they told me that they are all lie. and that's what I believed it. That it is just a delusion to make us fail, and that's what I believed in. But nowadays the Western countries are using radio to use the media strategy, and the North Korean people who cannot really know anything about outer world, then and also too poor to get on radio, can be impossible to influenced by that tactics. As my experience, I think maybe Syria and other countries, then the radio can be worked really well. But I think North Korea will be much more effective if you're using the newspaper, and that's what we're doing for the business.
North Korea has just held a huge military celebration marking its 65th anniversary, and we saw lots of pictures on our televisions of huge crowds and soldiers marching. Did you ever participate in such parades? And are the people who participate, do they genuinely enjoy it, or are they brainwashed into doing it?
The military parade that they held in this year, it is really big, and in 1998 I once participated when I was in the military school. As a military school beginner, I forcefully went into the march, actually, and I got the train for over 6 months, very hard training to march at the show. And the brainwash thing is actually, you cannot consider they brainwashed in the special occasion. They always brainwashed in any kind of social matters. When you go work, when you go after work, when you go factory, when you go off the factory, you can see everywhere. For example, let's say America is the enemy of the North Korea, then they actually give you the education says the North Korean tank is 3 and the North Korean tank is 5 of them. If the North Korean tank crashed 2 of the military American tank, then how many American tank are left? That kind of questions is all over the North Korea, not just the special occasions.
It's estimated that over 130,000 people are held in labor camps. Did you know about these labor camps when you were serving in the North Korean army?
Everybody knows, even I know about it, and but they don't know how much and how many of them. The reason that we calculated over 200,000 people is in the camp is because there is a lot of people escaped from the prison camp and came to the escaped from the North Korea, and they researched about how much it was and how many was them. So that's the well-known fact that 200,000 people is in the North Korean prison camp. But when I was inside of the military, they call it 노동 연대. There is another military version of the prison camp exists, and there was a lot of people captured from there. And if you add up that people as well, then it will be more than 200,000 people.
자체에서 운영하는 그걸 일명 노동연대라고 표현을 하는데요.
Do you see any signs of change or hope under the leadership of Kim Jong-un?
북한의
The North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, he took the North Korean a year ago, and the press actually had a lot of expectation and wrote a lot of articles about Kim Jong-un, is because he had overseas experience and studied at Swiss, and they just expecting that he could have different style of the policy and system, and they are expecting that, and that's how they described the North Korean situation. But my associates in North Korean and in the North Korean society find out that ever since the Kim Jong-un took over the North Korea, there's not much thing really different changed. I think that the North Korean will not get any better in this government, is because they even twist their histories and education system to brainwash everyone in the North Korea, and they are worrying about the people in the North Korea is because if they are aware about this brainwash system, and if they starting to realize that what kind of situation that they are facing of, and it can change, it can be very bad for the North Korean government right now.
From your sources, can you tell us what you know about the current food situation in North Korea? And is it the same in Pyongyang as it is in the countryside?
Quite recently, North Korean people, they kind of divide themselves. I mean, the North Korean are actually the class system. They have class system. But without the government or without the system, the people, they actually starting to divide themselves as highest and high and low, medium and low. The highest people is about 5%, and high people is about 50%, and medium people is about 40%, and lower people is about 40% as well. And this percentage is actually came from the North Korean people, but I think it's quite accurate. The difference between Pyongyang and another reason, well, I can explain it as the other locations are hell, and Pyongyang is heaven. It's like there is too much different, and there is a lot of people visited Pyongyang, and they consider the North Korean, the food problem is actually not that bad, but that's one error. It's because like I described, the medium and low class is almost 40, so 80 people. So most of the people, about 80% of the people in North Korea, they have a lot of trouble with eating.
Thanks very much indeed, Kim Joo-il, for talking to us today about your country. Finally, can I ask, how can Christians in Ireland pray for North Korea?
두 가지를 이야기하고
I would like to say two things. One thing is the North Korean actually have actually in their system they have idol. They have idolism, and this idolism is actually holding this North Korean for still going. And please pray for that this idealism can be destroyed, so that the people in the North Korea can actually hear about what Jesus says and know about the Christianity. And actually, and the second thing, the North Korea is actually closed society. So if you want to give them some Bible or send some people to send to take the Christian to the Korea, it can be impossible. But I think you can start with the North Korean defectors. You can actually deliver the God's saying to the North Korean defectors, so that they can hear about what Jesus says. And I think even you cannot even deliver the word from the Jesus to the North Korean defectors. How can you deliver the Jesus words to the North Korean? I have some doubt with it. And there is a lot of North Korean groups, and there's a lot of groups that they have some like poor situation. For example, we in Britain, there's like about 600 of the North Korean defectors are living, and there is some groups in North Korea who believe in Christianity. If you can, maybe you can spread the Jesus words to the North Korean defectors who believe in Christian. That's the start. And also maybe they can, you can give them some financial support as well.